Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling something that literally affects half the population, yet for some reason, it still gets whispered about behind closed doors. We're diving straight into the realities of menopause. We're going to break down the latest insights, the treatments, and honestly, the absolutely fascinating biology behind it all. And we're going to do it step by step so it actually makes sense. Listen, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of conflicting info out there, or if you're just trying to figure out some symptoms you don't quite understand, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's just jump right in.
I want to start with a quote from Sakimegu. She's a 52-year-old beauty expert and cosmetics developer who is right in the thick of her own menopause journey, and she completely nails the core message here. She says, "You don't have to endure it. You are not at fault." We have to start here because this idea that women should just suffer in silence and grit their teeth through the pain is completely outdated. It's done. If you're dealing with mysterious fatigue or sudden irritability, it is not a personal failing. It's just biology, and modern care has evolved to help you manage it.
Okay, so if it's not a personal failing, what is it? What exactly is happening under the hood to cause such a massive systemic disruption?
Well, first, we really have to get the timeline straight. Menopause isn't just a switch that flips overnight. It's roughly a 10-year period, usually spanning from ages 45 to 55. But the biological trigger? That is the real kicker. It is not a slow, gentle slope. It's a drastic, cliff-like drop in estrogen. The body literally cannot keep up with how fast the hormone disappears. And here's the thing. While the average age hits in the mid-40s to 50s, those physical shifts, they can actually start sneaking up on you as early as your late 30s.
And because estrogen is involved in so many different bodily functions, that cliff drop affects basically everything. The symptoms are all over the map. You've got hot flashes, which, by the way, are actually your blood vessels failing to dilate and regulate heat properly. You might experience completely random spikes or drops in blood pressure. There's joint pain, sudden chills, and over time, a loss of bone density and skin thinning, because estrogen helps produce collagen. Plus, we absolutely cannot ignore the mental toll. Irritability, emotional instability, a total loss of concentration. It really is a whole-body event. To really put that into perspective, listen to this experience from our source material. She said, "My upper body was burning, but my legs were freezing. I suddenly developed high blood pressure and abnormal fatigue." I mean, just imagine trying to get through a normal workday when your legs feel like ice, your chest is on fire, and you are just completely, utterly drained of energy. It really highlights how unpredictable and honestly uncomfortable this reality is. But bringing it back to our main takeaway, you don't have to just endure this. When we look at care, it's super helpful to think of it like a staircase. Breaking it down step by step takes these really complex medical choices and makes them feel actionable instead of totally overwhelming. We start with the foundation and just step our way up as needed. Let's look at exactly what each of these steps actually looks like.
Step 1 is all about early intervention. We're talking supplements and equal. Basically, when you eat soy isoflavones, your gut bacteria can actually convert them into a compound called equal, which mimics a very mild estrogen effect in your body. It's a really gentle way to give yourself some foundational support, especially for keeping your blood vessels healthy. And it's something you can start doing early, like in your late 30s or early 40s, when you're just starting to notice those minor changes.
But what happens when the basic supplements just aren't cutting it anymore? That's where step 2 comes in. This involves Kampo, which is traditional herbal medicine, and placenta treatments. When that bone-deep fatigue sets in, when you're completely exhausted but absolutely cannot fall asleep, these targeted therapies can be a game changer. In fact, our source found that when Equal stopped working for her, switching to a high-quality placenta supplement was the exact thing that finally let her get a good night's sleep again.
Okay, which brings us to step 3, hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Now, there are two completely different paths here that you really need to understand. First, you have insurance HRT. This uses mass-produced synthetic hormones with standard one-size-fits-all dosing, but because it's usually covered by insurance, it's very accessible. Then, on the flip side, you have natural HRT. These are bioidentical, meaning their chemical structure is a perfect match to the hormones your body naturally makes. The dosages are custom-tailored to your exact blood work, but yeah, that comes with a much higher out-of-pocket cost. Both paths require regular monitoring, but the philosophies behind them are pretty different.
Now, we need to talk about the realities of HRT, because there are so many outdated, scary rumors out there. The truth? Early intervention with HRT can actually reduce your risk of heart disease and colon cancer. That's huge. But obviously, it strictly requires medical screening. It's generally a no-go for anyone with a history of breast or uterine cancer or severe thrombosis. As for side effects, you might feel some temporary nausea while your body adjusts, and you can expect a minor water weight gain of maybe 1 to 2 kilos.
But hey, speaking of that water weight gain, there is actually a really surprising silver lining to estrogen's water retention. It gives you plumper, more youthful-looking skin. Seriously, estrogen is incredible at holding on to moisture. So even though the scale might tick up a tiny bit, that extra retained water often translates straight into skin that looks more hydrated, bouncy, and resilient. It's practically a built-in anti-aging treatment.
So at this point, looking at all these wild symptoms and treatment options, you might be wondering, if every single woman goes through this estrogen drop, why do the symptoms vary so much? Like, why is one person having debilitating hot flashes while her best friend barely notices a thing? Well, this is where the science gets really, really interesting.
It turns out it's like a giant puzzle, and the estrogen drop is only one piece. Your biological background and your lifestyle play a massive role here. For example, race and genetics impact symptom frequency. Studies actually show hot flashes are reported way more frequently by African American women, and less so by Japanese and Chinese women. A high BMI is another big factor, because excess weight increases inflammation and messes with temperature regulation. Smoking? That constricts your blood vessels and directly worsens hot flashes. And psychological stress severely amplifies the chaos in your autonomic nervous system.
And when you add all those factors up, the latest research reveals something absolutely mind-blowing. Genetics only account for about 8% of hot flash severity. Just 8%. That means the other 92% is influenced by other lifestyle and biological variables. Honestly, I find that incredibly empowering because it means that even though we can't change our DNA, so much of our experience is shaped by things we can actually manage.
So, what is the biggest driver in that 92%? Your mental state. Research shows that high levels of anxiety and psychological stress can increase the odds of severe menopause symptoms by roughly 3 times. 3 times! When you're super stressed, your nervous system is already redlining. Then you throw a sudden estrogen drop on top of that, and your body's regulatory systems literally just short-circuit. Managing your stress isn't just a nice self-care tip, it is a fundamental requirement for managing menopause.
Actually, quick aside here before we move on, because this is absolutely crucial. You cannot forget about your thyroid. Roughly 1 in 5 women in their 40s deal with thyroid issues, and here is the really tricky part. A struggling thyroid causes abnormal fatigue, tremors, and temperature issues that perfectly mimic menopause. They look exactly the same. So if you are completely exhausted, go get a comprehensive blood panel. It might not even be menopause. It could just be a highly treatable thyroid condition.
At the end of the day, whether you're relying on gentle supplements or going all in on natural HRT, none of it works to its full potential without a strong foundation. You have to nail the basics. That means protecting your sleep like it's your job. It means ditching those extreme restrictive diets, because your body desperately needs fuel right now. You've got to keep up with consistent exercise to protect your joints and blood vessels. And you need to check for nutritional deficiencies, like low zinc, which is a super common hidden cause of chronic fatigue.
Really, we just need to reframe how we look at this whole process. Aging isn't a loss of youth. Think of it more like a mandatory software upgrade for your body's operating system. As we change, there is absolutely no reason to feel shame or to just constantly wish for the past. We're just entering a new phase, and it requires a different kind of maintenance. We can use all this modern medical knowledge, better nutrition, and smart therapies to actually upgrade our self-care to match what our new operating system needs. Because as medical care continues to evolve, the real question you have to ask yourself is, how do you want to enjoy the rest of your life? The days of just grinning and bearing it through your 40s and 50s, those days are completely over. We have the data, we have the treatments, and we have the power to actually take control of this transition. So armed with everything we've talked about today, what proactive steps are you going to take to make sure the second half of your life is vibrant, comfortable, and truly yours? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking those great questions, and I will catch you in the next one.